Welcome back and thank you for joining me while we go through the steps to resurface and reseason your Blackstone griddle. So first, to clean the griddle, we will be using some Dawn Platinum as well as some water. Next, we'll be using a hand scraper to remove as much of the existing coating as possible. Then we'll be putting a strip disc onto a drill to remove everything that's left. You can pick something like this up at Ace, Home Depot, local hardware store for $4 or $5. One optional step I will also be taking is putting an 80 grit slap disc onto a 4.5-inch angle grinder. Now what this will do is kind of even out any of the high spots that are on the grill that kind of came that way from the factory. Anywhere there was like a rivet underneath, you can kind of see sat a little bit high, so this will knock it down and make it a little more glassy. Last step of the process is going to be to reseason the griddle, and we will be using Blackstone Griddle seasoning to do that as well. Phillips and a 10 mil to get the hood off if you got one. First, quick wash with the Dawn. Alright, so now that this is nice and clean and nice and dry, we're going to move on to getting some of this coating off. One thing I would avoid during the cleaning process is probably don't put the Dawn directly onto the griddle surface. You can see it did kind of leave a little bit of a swirl. I don't have as much loose stuff as I thought I did, so I'm gonna skip the hand scraping and move right onto the wheel. Before I do though, if you see some of these little dots down at the back, these are high spots from the factory. And like I said, it wasn't really quite as smooth as I wanted it to be. So that's why we're gonna take that flap disc and try and even this whole surface out a little bit once we get it nice and clean. So the wheel's working great, but I just want to try the 80 grit flap disc. So the slap disc is definitely making much quicker work. I will say that you definitely got to be careful with it. This will, chew right through this thing if you leave it there long enough. These things are used to grind and polish metal. This is metal, we can grind and polish this. So just to remove the coating, make sure you're skimming it along pretty quick. I'm kind of spamming the trigger a little just to keep the RPMs down on the grinder itself. I just want to make sure I got some batteries on the charger. Be right back. So the slap disc on the grinder is definitely making way quicker work of it. Both pulling the old black off of the stone and also kind of polishing and smoothing the surface in the process, making it a little bit less porous. Not quite done yet, battery's died. Gonna take a quick break to charge up. Looking like a mirror. Got the previous coating off, a lot of those previous imperfections, a lot of those surface pores. Gonna give it a quick clean and get seasoning. So we've got the top back on the griddle. We got the gas turned on. We're gonna set every burner to high. Let this thing warm up. All right, so now that we got the griddle nice and hot, we're gonna be applying some of the Blackstone seasoning, spreading it around with a paper towel. Coat number 3. I don't know how many rounds of seasoning that was. I guess I'll find out when I edit. I'm gonna let this cook off and cool down. So after about 100 rounds of seasoning, you can see we are left with a glassy surface. It looks wet, but it ain't. Nice and black, nice and shiny, nice and smooth. If some of your edges, some of your corners don't really fill in, don't worry about it. As you start to cook, they will even out. This thing looks great, and I am hungry. Let's cook.